is Tanya, and I'm the marketing manager of PourMyBeer. I am here at Stanley Marketplace, specifically at Stanley Beer Hall, which is a beautiful and awesome venue here in Colorado, Denver. And I'm here with Jim Wright, who is not only an operator here, but he's also operating several other venues here in Denver and a few other awesome spots in the United States. I will let Jim tell us a little bit more about his background.
I have been in our industry for a long time. 25 years might be an understatement. So I've done everything in the industry from the ground up. I used to go wash dishes for my grandmother years ago when she was running a food venue. I've served, bartended, done virtually everything. I used to work for Rock Bottom Group years ago.
Awesome.
In the original, it was the 75th busiest restaurant in the country, and we sold more beer over the bar than any bar in the country.
Wow.
That's interesting.
And I wasn't there.
Yeah, you're not there. Yeah, we used to do an average of 72 kegs a day.
Wow.
7 days a week was our average flow. So we were very busy. From that, gone on to do several other ventures with, been fortunate enough to work with some big names in the industry, kind of behind things, setting up operations, retooling venues and the style of venue and setting up concepts and such, including Denver Performing Arts Complex, a couple of fine dining operations in Denver, the Performing Arts Complex in downtown, as well as the Denver Art Museum, and then on to Union Station, which was a very large project, central anchor to downtown Denver. From there I came on to help these guys out, change over the style of service that they had there. They're having some difficulties with the original traditional restaurant concept that they had. So we changed over to the self-tap wall, ripped out the bar, which used to be right here.
It's much cooler now.
We've got a couple other operations in Denver, Broadway Market, we're building Golden Mill, and a couple other projects that we're doing. Since we've switched over to self-tap system and PourMyBeer, and running with it in several places now across the country. I've also helped set this up with the Hyatt company and special projects with that. So kind of a varied background.
I've seen some beautiful photos of that, and I'm excited to see some more. So as you can hear, Jim has a ton of experience in the hospitality industry, and I'm here today to compare some of his experience when he used to have iPourMyBeer technology and his experience now with PourMyBeer technology. As we are sitting here, his second beer wall in this venue is actually just getting installed outside, so that's pretty exciting. And there's going to be a total of 51 taps?
51 taps. I've wanted to do this outdoor beer wall since we first put the original beer wall in. We have over half of our seating capacity is outside, and we live in lovely Colorado, so we get to take advantage of it more than most places in the country. So I wanted to extend this to my outdoor patio guests and have some flexibility within the venue. So I'm finally able to make that decision, build a 16 tap outdoor beer wall. I don't know how many of those exist in the country. Are there other ones?
It's a new trend now with COVID, definitely. It's starting to pick up and we have more interest, but at this point there's probably about only 4 or 5. It's very little. It's definitely barely starting.
We're very excited, especially with some of the unique things that we have here at Stanley Marketplace. It's going to be huge for us, and it allows us to do private events with a self-tap beer wall, which we've had a lot of interest in for the 3 years that we've had self-pour technology. But we've had to say no because we had to turn away our regular daily guests. We didn't want to do that.
Jim, can you tell me a little bit more about the check-in process for the customer when you compare the check-in process for PourMyBeer and check-in process with PourMyBeer?
So I have a little bit of a unique perspective on this because I also own part of a POS company that we were able to integrate with PourMyBeer, specifically because the challenges with check-in are a concern we're concerned when we had the old system, and the biggest complaint that we would receive often was the lines at the door and having to go back through the lines and check out.
Yeah.
So the iPort check-in took a few more steps just to get the check-in on the iPort system before we opened the tab in the POS system. So it was a little bit cumbersome. And because of the scanning tools and such like that, the names wouldn't match sometimes, so we would end up with tabs open in the POS system, and when people went to close out, we couldn't find it because it was Jones in the POS or Smith in iPort, and so we would lose money on those tabs. So we figured it was about $140 a day.
Wow.
Was normal for us and we're a busy place, so we poured a lot of waste. Now that wasn't all mistakes. That was also issues with foaming because the way the installation was done, things like that. So once we fast forward to the PourMyBeer installation, the touches on the PourMyBeer tab opening process were fewer touches. The system was faster, and we used the same data to open up, the same names to open up the tabs in the POS. Because of our integration with My Access Point, all of that is now done on the POS. So now it's 3 touches. So you hit open, you tap the beer card, you dip the credit card processes, hand the guest back their credit card and their beer card, and they're off to the wall. That's all there is to it.
Just a matter of a few seconds.
Yep.
How long approximately?
It's 12, 15 seconds tops. So, and that includes the guest on their side choosing whether or not they want to go ahead and pre-tip, which they can do, so they don't have to come back through the line. If they pre-tip, then when they leave, they can just drop their card, tips already on it. The staff just settle the transaction as done.
Amazing.
All the data is captured in the POS. Yeah, it's fantastic. So it really changed it. So in 2019, for the year prior, we switched to PourMyBeer in September of 2019. For the year prior to that date, pulled some data, and we had done it was just under 80,000 tabs.
Wow.
For that year. So we're lucky to be a busy place. So.
Cheers to that.
As will I. When I ran the numbers after we had done the integration, which was finished in October of 2019, in February of 2020, pre-COVID, hopefully I ran these numbers, I analyzed the per ticket average, and it was 85.6 cents more per ticket that we were capturing in beer sales just because we had this system.
Wow.
So in a year, that's 80,000. I'm sorry? Yes.
The system pretty much paid for itself.
Well, $80,000 times 85 cents is $65,000, $70,000.
So you should have added even more tabs.
Yes.
Awesome.
So so it was life-changing for the workflow at the door, my guest experience because they don't have to come back up, how quick it is that they can walk in, get signed in, and have a cocktail, and they don't have to go back through the line. And now we have the ability with the advancements in the hardware that we can actually do a full check-in right at the table. So people can walk in and sit down. We have handheld where we can fully check in somebody on the beer wall with a handheld at the table.
Awesome.
Run the credit card, set the card up, just like you were at the full station. So it's been business saving for us.
That's wonderful to hear.
That's
Right.
great.
Okay, so now let's transition more to the data part of iBoard and also PourMyBeer. First, I would like to know about the customer's experience, really experiencing some of the data on, the real-time pour and things like that. And then if you can also explain how you as an operator are utilizing the data from PourMyBeer and whatever you're able to do with the data from iBoard, that would be great.
Okay, so the guests see how many ounces they pour right at the time that they're pouring it. I can show you that. It's pretty simple. The pour goes instantly onto the ticket with real-time data. So the guest experience is really great. We had a number of issues with iPour with the tablets failing and such like that in the middle of shifts, so we had to give away a lot of.
And can you elaborate on failing? What does that mean? Would they just turn off? Would they
lock up, not be responsive? At the point where we actually switched out the beer wall, we had some of the tablets just covered with pieces of paper explaining what was being poured from the tap. So it was pretty janky looking in here. So we couldn't get replacement hardware. It was unfortunate. So the guest experience has been great since we've done the changeover. We haven't had literally any issues whatsoever with hardware or guests having ghost pours and things like that. We were having to void pours often off of the old system because of guests having issues with the numbers that were showing up. They're like, this said I poured this much and it didn't, stuff like that. So, but we haven't had any of that. So.
That's excellent to hear. Awesome. Yeah. Can you also now tell me a little bit more about the operator side of things? So how are you utilizing the PourMyBeer data versus iBoard's data?
Sure. So we do a very A to Z daily inventory and management of how our kegs are set up. So in our system, when a keg is empty, we put a different keg on. So our guests always have a different experience every time they come in. So with the exception of the 4 or 5 things on the entire beer wall, everything is brand new. It's a fresh experience every time you come in. That takes some management, knowing how much is in every keg, and some inventory control, which we do every single morning. In the back-end data on the keg consumption side, we go look on the server and look at what the balance is in every single keg and punch it into our inventory management sheet that we do, and that helps us set up for the day. We have a spreadsheet that's on our beer cooler that says what beer is on tap, what beer is going to be on tap, and the percentage that's in the beer that's on tap, so the staff can know, hey, I'm probably going to have to change 10 kegs today because we have 10 low kegs. So that's very simple for us to do. Versus the way we used to do it in the iPour system, it was hard to convert the data off of the back end into what we were trying to do. So we would often find ourselves with kegs kicking and we didn't know. What's really great about between our system and PourMyBeer is there's a keg level indicator on the front of the screen line on the side. So the staff can pay attention, whoever happens to be the beer ambassador for the day can pay attention to what's going on with the keg. And if something is kicked, they can confirm it on here if the guest has had an issue, and then confirm it with our system as well. So that's the main piece of it. As far as the pour data goes, in the integration piece, every single pour shows up in the POS with the name and the pour amount. So we know exactly how many pours we've done, exactly how many ounces in the POS, and it's all automated. We don't have to do any programming, anything like that. So it's really pretty incredible. So we have a full PMix that is automated, and we only have to program the beer one time in the we use Untapped that feeds the information into PourMyBeer's server, and we get all that data straight through. In our old system, when you wanted to add a new beer, you had to email the beers to, if they weren't already in your system, you had to email them to iPort, and they had to enter them into your database. And for us, because we change, when a beer runs out, we change it to something new every keg. So every time a keg ran out, it's something different. So we had many kegs. In the summer, we'll go through 35 kegs in a week.
Wow.
So if they haven't queued up the beers that we've ordered, that we sent them on Monday to be ready, and we have to put beer in on Friday, and it's a little rush, we can't put the beer on. And now our whole system, because we have that management system in place, the staff wouldn't know what to do. So, and because we keep like type beers on like lines and stuff like that, it was a big problem. And you would get, if you went and tried to add it yourself and it was added incorrectly, you'd get a don't do that email, which is a little frustrating. Remember? So yeah, that was frustrating. So now with we just have to add the beer in Untapped, and then it shows up in PourMyBeer, which subsequently shows up in the tablet. And with our integration, once you pour a beer, whatever information's in the tablet goes right into your PMix without programming. So you don't have to program PourMyBeer or your POS for every beer that you have. It's great.
Sounds efficient.
Yeah, it's really great. So plus, if we do have to add something like a cocktail or a wine or something like that, because that's not in Untapped, they only do beer, we can do that ourselves, and it takes 2 minutes.
And put a cute picture there too.
Yes. Don't get your own picture.
Yeah, occasionally I like it when people put like their dog or cat or do something really cute.
So we have our margaritas and the other, because we do cocktails on the beer wall as well, and we've done our own pictures and such like that, and we just upload them in the system. And
margarita's your top secret, huh?
It's the one thing that doesn't really change on the wall. So outside of burgers, we sell more margarita by dollar than anything else.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously beer we sell the most of, but any one specific item.
Here you have one tap or one screen. Outside, the beer hall that's being built there for you right now, it's gonna have 2 taps for one screen. What made you go with this decision? I think that with iPort you had the setup in the same way, right? If you can tell me a little bit more about that, that would be wonderful.
So my decision to do inside, to go with one tap, one screen, was because we had originally been one tap, one screen with iPort. That's their only option. And I didn't want to change the guest experience too much. I wanted it to be, while it was changing a little bit, I wanted it to be pretty much the same thing on the inside beer wall. So subsequent to that, I've done a couple other projects, consult on other projects where we've done multiple taps per screen. And I found that the 2 taps per screen works intuitively for the guest just the same as 1 tap per screen. So so that was my reasoning outside. And the decision as to whether I wanted to buy 1 tablet for every screen or 1 tablet for every 2 screens, and because the fees are structured per tablet, it just makes sense. Now, more than 2 per screen doesn't make sense in our world, but because 2 screens set up naturally right over 2 taps, it's very intuitive that this is all tied together. So it just makes a lot of sense for self-tap customers. So.
In the other 2 projects that you mentioned, where there is multiple taps per screen, is it always 2 taps per screen?
Everything that I've done,
yeah.
Because I've advised, well, I've been part of a location that did 3 taps per screen, and there's some other reasons why that one was not as intuitive as the 2 taps per screen, but that's part of the reason I've gone with the 2 of the other projects I've done, including Hyatt and these other venues that I'm building right now. So we're doing 2
It's always staying busy.
Yeah, I was trying to keep it as intuitive as I could for the guest, and after watching guests use it live at 2 per, and again because 2 taps fit naturally under one screen, it makes it basically the same experience as it is with one tap.
Absolutely. I've actually had a couple of customers telling me that sometimes they see that if the screen is right there and the customer is pouring something from the first tap, and let's say, especially if it's the same style of beer, it's a sour, they'll automatically go and sample the other one too. Have you had any experience like that too, that you think that it might actually promote the sampling since it's a similar style of a beer usually that's on the same screen?
You know, I haven't noticed it, but that certainly makes sense to me.
Yeah.
You know, the guests tasting things
Yeah.
down the wall is a big part of this experience, so that certainly makes sense. On one that I'm in every day, this will be the first 2 tap per. All the rest of the ones I've done to date are consulting projects.
Got it.
So I've only been there for a short period.
Sounds like I have a great reason to come back for a follow-up.
So,
I need some data on that.
So the other 2 projects I'm building right now are all going to be 50 plus tap projects, and they're all 2 per, and those will be my operations. So
Wonderful.
I'll get back to you.
There's going to be a lot more beer for me to drink in Denver area. I like that. Okay, Jim, one more thing I wanted to ask you about is because some of our customers really just utilize the function of putting the PourMyBeer card in to allow customers to pour, but I've noticed that a lot of your customers are also really just tapping and go. Is there a particular reason why you choose to use this?
It's quicker for the guest. The guests hang on to their card that way, although most of our guests do actually set the card in the reader, even though they can't tap and go. A little bit has to do with the integration, but it wasn't a conscious decision outside the fact that it's what our guests were used to a little bit, and it's just a little faster for them. But it really doesn't make much difference to it. You know, if the guest leaves the card, we put in the card, and then all that stuff's really easy. So the card does time out if it's a tap and go, so you don't have to worry about security or anything like that, and you can preset that time limit in the back. I think you're set to either 4 or 5 seconds after you remove the card that you can pour. So once the system recognizes the card, it doesn't matter whether you leave it or not, you're still going to pour in the same manner. So.
When you compare the iPourIn system and PourMyBeer system on the fee end of things, how much you were paying on your monthlies, can you tell me a little bit more about that, price-wise, but also support-wise? What could you expect? Could you not expect?
So part of the analysis as to why we switched over was because of the fee structure. So we are a busy place, and we could pay over $2,000 a month in the summer for our fees, and still up in the $1,000 range during the winter in our fees. So because the fees went along with how busy we were, it could get pretty crazy. So what we really liked about the fee structure here is that it was so much per tablet. It didn't matter how busy we were, and even when we were not busy, the fees were less than they would be even in not busy times for the monthly fees. We did an arrangement where our hardware was all part of it, and the purchase of the hardware payment and our fees is less than in our busy middle 6 months, are less than the monthly fees were for iPourIn. So buying the hardware and the fees is less than just the fees. So it's significant for us. So we would do 250 and 300,000 ounces a month in the summer.
It's a lot of beers.
Penny an ounce, that's a lot of
Yeah,
beers.
that's up. Absolutely. And if you can tell me a little bit more about your support experience, are you able to compare it?
well, comparing, they don't compare, but so part of what the iPort fee structure is supposed to be for is support. And as I mentioned earlier in the programming of the beers, that we could tap beers, that didn't work. It was really inconsistent. And virtually every week we didn't have something that we needed. We needed stuff replaced, tablets replaced, all of that kind of stuff, and we didn't get it. So on the PourMyBeer side of things, when we call, somebody gets back to us right away, or they answer the phone, which answering the phone is huge. I should rephrase that. When we call PourMyBeer, they answer the phone or they get back to us right away. It's not the other way around. So there's always somebody there for us to deal with a problem. What's really great about it is we don't have to call very often. So we haven't had any, outside of the first couple weeks when we're just getting used to the system, we haven't had any hardware support calls whatsoever, not one that I can remember. Most of our calls are due to trying to figure out something that we put in Untapped that we made a mistake generally that doesn't come over with PourMyBeer. That's
luckily, as I hear, we're there to pick up that phone.
Yeah, to pick up the phone and handle it. Justin, who's doing the install today, actually picked up the last support call we had, which was 2 months ago, and it was a database error that we made on our side. So went through and took care of it, and it was handled and dialed in, and it was handled in 30 minutes, and was really fixing something that we had done wrong on the pricing side.
And how was your experience with support from iPort?
So with iPort, if we would call them, we rarely pick up the phone, rarely. And often we would get calls back, sometimes for weeks. And at the end, towards the end of our experience, especially when we needed hardware replaced and we're having some pretty severe problems, it was making it so our beer wall was embarrassing, to be honest with you, and difficult for us to operate. So we'd have to black out screens. Like I said earlier, we had to put up towards the end paper over our screens if we couldn't get the item that we wanted poured on there, things like that. So it was really, the system was not as durable. The support wasn't there to make up the difference for the lack of durability. So we really have no problems with the system itself. Really, the only thing that we ever have is just making sure we get the beer in or the item in correctly. So all the issues we have.
That's great to hear.
So it's been great. We're a
For
year, yeah. So we're a year and 6 months. Right?
Awesome.
So it's a changeover.
That's great to hear.
So,
When was that final point or stage when you were just like, well, this is enough. This enough is enough. What was that last trigger for you?
So it was a little bit, I mean, I'd been to where it was enough is enough for months,
Oh, sorry.
but we were doing the other project, and we had brought in PourMyBeer for the other project, the broader project. And in that, we had started the process for the integration, and it just gave us the opportunity to make the call. And after we were happy with what we were experiencing at Broadway, we decided that it was more than worth the investment to do so here as well. And it has absolutely been amazing. So,
Thank you.
yeah, so that's how we put it.
Awesome. Well, I'll cheer to that.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers, Jim. Thanks so much for spending some time here with me today. Thank you.
My pleasure.